Hello and welcome back to another episode of our How to Paint Imperial Fists. This is probably actually going to be our last episode, so we are going to go ahead and dive right in. First and foremost, we're going to be using Dryad Bark, and this is for the weapon sling. Should just take us a second or two, if I could remember to uncap my paintbrushes. As always, we want to get a nice thin amount of paint on our palette, and we will dive right into it. So, nice and easy. We want to get the front and back of this, and while this is drying, we'll kind of fix up some of the other little spots that we need to deal with. There's a lot of black we need to use, and hopefully we don't end up ruining all of our hard work on our white. I do already have some some spots that we do need to go back over with our Imperial Fists yellow, just because I kind of made a little bit of a mess while we were doing the edge highlighting on the shoulders, and I just messed up the hand there as well, so we'll need to fix that. But overall, we're pretty close to finishing. We do need to do a little bit of a wash, both on the base and on the model itself. But overall, it really shouldn't take us that long. It's mainly just cleanup work is all we're doing today. And of course, I didn't use nearly enough paint in my palette, as always. So we do want to apply a little bit more. And I think those little, I think they're like grenades on the bottom of the belt loop there. We will also have to kind of mess with a little bit. I think they have, they have like this strap in the front. We want that to be brown. And then the grenades themselves will be brass. And of course, we're going at weird angles already. Kind of our classic maneuver here. And this actually might take 2 layers. The primer didn't seem to really catch onto that very well. So that's fine. We'll go back over it once it dries. And then just a little bit more. We want to get the very back side of that leather strip. You can also paint this black if you want. I think it just gives you a little bit more kind of differential work if you make it a different color than the gun itself. So I normally like to keep these more of a brown, or just a different color, just whatever you have laying about that isn't black. And I'm really struggling on keeping enough paint on my palette today. This is like the 4th time I've had to refill it from the pot. But that should be our kind of final passover we need there. And then we will, oh, I lied. The front also needs a little bit of work. And there we are. Nice and easy. And then we will check this front one last time. Hopefully not ruin our brush while we edit. I pushed a little bit too hard. It's kind of unfortunate, but if you just get your brush nice and clean, usually the bristles kind of go back to normal. I mentioned it last time, but these are really cheap Amazon brushes. I think the specific brand is Golden Maple. And my model is coming off of the paint handle, unfortunately. We'll fix that in a second. It was really hurting my hand to keep that on there at such an awkward angle. But we will finish this up first. And there we are. As that's drying, we'll put it back on. Moving on, we are going to do some other stuff here while we wait, and then we'll come back and get that kind of brass color done once everything's all dry. We're going to be moving on to Abaddon Black. Of course, the bane of my existence while we're painting mainly yellow. But hopefully we shouldn't have too much trouble. We're mostly going to be doing recess areas, and if we get our paint kind of thin enough, it should just fall right into the spots we want. My hands are a little bit shaky today though, so we might have a little bit of trouble with that. But we want to get kind of these, I don't know what you want to call them, like the in-between the armor panels. And there's majority of that is on the back. You can also use non-oil to do this if you want, if you don't want to worry about like thinning your paints. Non-oil with like 1 or 2 coats will fill these up very nicely, and it'll keep that kind of same shade of black. But this is just a little bit quicker. And perfect. We'll have to go back over it 1 or 2 more times, but that is fine. And like I said before, since it's so thin and it's nice and watery, it does kind of fall right into that recess, so it doesn't go anywhere we don't want it to. This might be a little bit more difficult though, just because it's more of a weird spot. And it goes up right to the kind of edge of the thigh there, and then all the way under. And here's where the kind of weird spot comes in. I'm not sure if it's supposed to go all the way under, like fully between, or whether that armor panel is supposed to like fully separate the two. So we'll just kind of leave it alone, if I'm honest. I really don't want to kind of mess with it one way or another. But we will do the best with all the areas that we know are supposed to be black. Perfect. And of course, once that dries, we'll go right back over it. There's also a tiny little bit that we can sort of see right here in the front. And let me just get a little bit more paint. Again, nice and thin, plenty of water mixed in with it, just because we don't want this really going outside of our recesses. And it's very hard to see, so we're not going to focus on it that much. But I do just want to get generally all of that little recessed area filled in. And while we're here, might as well do a little bit on the chest as well, just to really fill in anything we missed last time. The chest kind of looks a little rough. Unfortunately, either it's gonna look too dark and messy, or the yellow is gonna look a little messy. I can't really find like a good in between. I did kind of go back and forth a few times, just trying to clean it up a little bit, but it was not agreeing with me, just with the position of the bolter being in the way and the paints that we're using. So I'm doing the best we can here. But we'll carry on and we'll go right back into those little recesses, just give them one more quick pass through. And then we'll move on to our next color, which should be Balthazar Gold, which I always will argue that it's more of a brass color, but you know, I didn't do the naming scheme, GW did, so I'll argue with them. And make sure we got a good little amount on our brush there. I really missed that like one spot in the middle. Maybe, if my brush doesn't want to dry up on me today. And there we are. I'm actually kind of surprised with how well these brushes are holding up. With them being so cheap, the last few kind of brands that I've gone through, I mean, they're all the same pretty much. They're all just very cheap little like dollar store Chinese made brands. But these golden maple ones, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, there we go, golden maple. They're actually holding up pretty well, at least more than 20 minutes, which is more than the last set of brushes I used did. So I am impressed enough. And we'll go right back over that one as well. And they're not quite perfect, but honestly they're good enough. And once we get this one in the front, that kind of should be all the black we want to really do. Maybe we'll get just a little bit more on that chest piece there. Perfect. And moving on, while we're here, I might as well do one last little hard part. We're going to do the eyes, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I hate doing eyes. They are kind of quintessentially the hardest thing to do, doubly so because we're doing such a weird kind of color to do. If we mess it up, we can't just go back over it with yellow. We have to go back and do Wraithbone and then yellow. So I want to be extra careful while we're doing this. And hopefully our paint is nice and thin enough. Actually, really want to get this kind of close. I don't know if you'll be able to see this too well or whether it's going to make it blurry, but oh, almost perfect. think it's perfect enough. You can't really tell. I just missed a tiny little bit. It's fine. Now, here's the real question. Can I do this one too? Oh, that's beautiful. It's not perfect, but honestly, that's probably the best one we've done so far. So I'm glad. We will keep that, and I will never touch red again with this model. Also, I didn't point it out, but that was corn red. So there you are. Same color I've been using for pretty much the eyes with every other Space Marine we've done so far. I also want to shout out, we're going to be doing Necrons very soon. Either probably our next series or the one after it. I also want to do Raptors and Salamanders. I think Salamanders I'm going to do kind of last in that order out of the 3 choices I have. And then I want to do either Necrons or Raptors next. I'm still kind of arguing which one I'm going to do. So if you have a preference, leave a comment. Also want to shout out, I have a Patreon. If you enjoy these videos and you want to see more, feel free to check that out. The lowest you can go is like $1 a month, and it supports my channel. All of it goes directly back into buying things that help with making videos, whether that's new models, new paints, just any of it. So yeah, feel free to check that out if you enjoy this and you want to see more. Otherwise, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, that whole thing. All of it helps me out greatly, and I appreciate all of it. I don't know what this little thing is called, but it looked really cool, so I figured we'd add it onto him. I did get a little bit of brass right there on that his like elbow pad though. That's a little bit unfortunate. We'll fix that before the video's done. And getting just a little bit more of this Balthazar gold on our palette. Again, I don't think I shouted out what color this was before I started. I'm getting really bad at that, unfortunately. But we do want to paint this eagle, kind of using the back of the brush, just pushing down very lightly. It kind of paints it for us while avoiding all of those little recessed areas. You can use this trick anytime you have an area that's kind of raised. And as long as you're careful with it, it works pretty well. Sometimes you do have to do a little bit of cleanup, but overall, it's looking pretty solid. And we'll do one more little pass over on this upper part here. Yeah, good enough. We'll clean it up a little bit in a second. But I also want to get these bolter shells or grenades, whatever you want to call these. Just paint them a nice quick layer of brass. I mentioned it last time, but I think having grenades or a whole grenade launcher even on a bolter is kind of overkill. But the rule of cool says otherwise, so we'll rock with it. And the primer, unfortunately, did not catch these grenades at all, so the paint's having a little bit of trouble sticking to it, but I think it's kind of thick enough being metallic that it's managing it on its own. And real quickly, we just want to do the other side, being very careful not to get that kind of leather strap. It's kind of dark enough though, you really can't tell, even if I did, so don't stress about it too much. But we will go back over and make sure the other side is fully done as well. Perfect, and we want to get the top. I don't know if you can see it too well. We're again doing some really weird angles, I know. But that's kind of what we're used to at this point. And the back really needs to be done. And almost. Perfect. Oh, the tiny little bit there that I missed. We will check the other side as well, but it should be good. Yeah, just about. I always think that I got something perfectly done, and then I do a double take, and it's not. It's always the worst feeling, but unfortunately it is what it is. Speaking of Necrons, though, I don't want to do like the normal color scheme. I know we've kind of been doing like the box art for basically everything we've done so far, but I kind of want to change it up a little bit. I saw a really, really cool color scheme that someone did. I think it was on like Tumblr or something. I saw it on, where they basically did purple, gold, and white as like the main colors, which I think the white and the gold is going to be kind of weird to pull off, just if we're messy about it. But I kind of want to give it a shot. So I think that's what we're going to do. And then when we do our raptors and salamanders, we'll kind of go back to just basic color schemes. We won't do anything too crazy. But I do want to do a little bit of wraithbone over this kind of pad that we ruined a little bit. And same thing with this shoulder pad. It's a really thin down amount, but it should be good enough for what we want. And give it a quick once over, just make sure there's nothing else we really need to fix. Overall, I think we're pretty good. I do want to clean up the back of that gun, but otherwise I think we're kind of done with our base colors. I just want to go with a little bit more of our contrast yellow just to fix up all of our mistakes. And then we'll move on to our washes, and we'll be done. Oops, I do not want brown, I want black. Once again, coming in with Abaddon Black. I thought I was done with it, but of course, there's always another spot that I missed. And I keep knocking the light above my workstation, unfortunately. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but I do apologize. It's just at a really weird spot. And actually, this black is like super thin down, way more than I want it to be. So we will fix that just a little bit. And get behind that hand if we can. Perfect. I also want to get the top of this gun as well. The black didn't really stay there the first time we did it. So we will do it again. And I think around the eagle there needed a little bit of cleanup. But otherwise, everything else looks kind of perfectly fine. Not too shabby, if I do say so myself. Do want to get the back of this gun a little bit. It's looking a little rough. And a little bit more work on the chest. I think we're pretty solid. I did see the back of this knee pad though needs a little bit of work. I don't know if you can even see it or not, but do my best to kind of fix it up. And another little joint there. Perfect. We'll call that kind of good enough, maybe. I swear there's always one more spot. You'll have something perfectly painted, and it'll just unpaint itself. It's like magic. But that should be all of our black done. Get my brush nice and clean. We don't want any residue left over because it's going to ruin our yellow if we do. But we're moving into our contrast Imperial Fist, and make sure our brush is actually nice and dry because we don't need to thin this down at all. I don't know if you have to shake contrast paint or not, but I like to anyway. It's not like there's no pigment to really separate from paint, so I kind of don't think you need to, but oh well. I'm going to do it. I'm going to enjoy it. Gosh darn it. And just very quickly going over all of that wraithbone. I actually did most of it off camera just to kind of fix up all of our mistakes, but we'll go very quickly right back over all of it. And make sure we get into those little recesses. Perfect. This is actually kind of the most enjoyable part of the whole thing. I was really worried when I first did this because I've never done like a majority contrast paint before, besides like Necrons, or sorry, not Necrons, Tyranids. But honestly, I kind of enjoy this more than like regular paint on Space Marines, if I'm being honest. And we also want to clean up that chest just a little bit. Fortunately, the stomach really isn't taking paint at all. I've been over it plenty of times. I was trying to fix that up off camera, but thankfully it's blocked enough by his bolter. I'm really not worried about it. And we'll go around the eyes a little bit, just kind of clean up any little detail that we missed. And one last little pass over his shoulder pad and the neck, actually. I didn't even see that. And generally, that should be about it. We can move on to our washes now. And this will take us just a second. I don't want anything too crazy. I do want to kind of go into all these little cracks and crevices and just do a very quick shade of, I think we're using Agrax Earthshade for this. I would have done Lord words. I would have done Nuln Oil, but it probably would have turned out way too dark and would have ruined some of our yellow, so we're not actually going to do that. Agrax, though, is a nice alternative. It works better on kind of warm colors. Nuln Oil is better on your like metallics, your silver and your golds and whatnot. And we're going to make sure this is nice and thinned down. And we're just going to go into basically anywhere there's little cracks or crevices and just kind of very quickly. And we're going to do some weird angles, as always, but we're going to go right in. And because it's so thinned down, it just falls right into those little recesses. No big deal at all. You can also use like panel liner. There's like a specific brand that they make for this. But honestly, just using washes works just fine. And I have no qualms about that, so we will keep at it. And I'm just kind of looking for all these little hidden details now. I know the knee pads are a big spot for this. Keep my paint thin, and actually a little bit less on my brush would be nice. I don't want it spilling out too much. Yeah, like right there, but that's fine. We'll kind of leave it just for a little bit of grime. Normally I kind of like my Space Marines looking like factory fresh, but I feel like an Imperial Fist looks a little bit cooler if he's not, so we'll leave him. And around there. I'm really excited to see this when it's dry. I think this is going to look great. We will continue on the path. Been playing a ton of Total War recently, Warhammer 3 specifically. I gotta say, I would really love a Total War 40k game. There's plenty of arguments against why it shouldn't be a thing, why it should be a thing. I don't care. I think it'd be cool enough. It would be good on its own, just on merit. And we will do the backpack. The kind of cracks and crevices, maybe even get into these little exhaust ports a little bit, make them nice and grimy. And same thing with the arms. Never really realized how many little recesses and indents the Space Marine has until you do this. They just keep coming. The helmet, of course, a little grill, the vents, whatever you want to call them. His arm has a bunch. Go over his hands a little bit. And generally, I think we're about done. There's one last thing I want to do before we finish off, and that is the base. It looks a little bit too clean to me personally. Imagine you're on a battlefield. You're not going to have like pure sand, right? It's going to look real wild, real wacky. So with just a little bit of this thinned down, and actually I'm going to switch brushes here. I don't want to use such a small one. We are once again, this brush actually was too dried a little bit. I think I left some paint on there, unfortunately. Using our thinned down Agrax, I'm just going to spread it out all over this sand, all over the base, and make it like a nice kind of dirty, oily, kind of, blown up looking sand. Maybe an explosion just went off, or, maybe he just dropped onto an active battlefield or something, right? A little bit of story with the base. That's always kind of fun. And you don't have to be clean about this. You don't have to be like uniform. Just kind of make it a little bit sporadic and random. And that also helps us cover up any of our kind of paint that we ended up getting on the base as well. You can see a little bit of yellow there. but with a little bit of this wash, it does kind of blend right in. So nothing too crazy, but it does make us look a little bit nicer. And you can see there on the back that that panel lining makes a huge difference. Unfortunately, there's a big mold line there in the middle, but we'll ignore it. Other than that, though, I think we are kind of finished. I've had a lot of fun painting this guy. Excuse me. And as always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you have any suggestions about what you want to see next, please do not be afraid to leave them in the comments. I am open to anything. If you have any criticism, same thing. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.